So let's get started. Very, very big welcome to you all at the next in our series of events for the Accelerate Business Support Programme. And that's provided to you by the Kent and Medway Growth Hub. And before we get into the event and I introduce you to our speaker, just really a bit about the Kent and Medway Growth Hub. And it's for some of you, this will be a service which you're very well aware of. For some of you, this might be the first time that you've heard about the Growth Hub. Simply speaking, this is really the first place that you should go to identify what business support is available across Kent and then more broadly nationally for any startup, for any wannabe entrepreneur, for any small business, for any established business and for large businesses. And the Kent and Medway Growth Hub provides you with all sorts of particularly navigation to the different types of support. It provides you with all sorts of events. Like this one, we have events that are purely virtual. We've also got a whole series of events that are happening and they are hybrid. And if you're not familiar with a hybrid event, there is a face-to-face option and there is also a virtual option. So there's going to be a few things that I'm going to be asking you and to do that. So the first thing, and we want you, there's going to be a few things that we're going to ask you. So the first thing is that if you have come through Eventbrite for this event, and that's how we've done that, then what we would really like you to do is to follow the Kent and Medway Growth Hub Eventbrite channel, and that's going to give you access to all of the rest of the Accelerate programme events. And there's events all across March into the start of April. It's also going to be where you'll see future events from the Kent and Medway Growth Hub, and that's really the place to be. So just make sure that you give that a follow, and then you'll get notified of events coming up. And we've got events focused around business resilience. There's a webinar coming up for that. We've got events focused around finance, around digital marketing, and around sales growth. And also looking at how you can grow your business sustainably, recognising some of the changes that have happened in the recent budget. So there's a lot of good support out there, a lot of good events, great speakers, and a really good opportunity. So let's get on to our speaker and our subject, getting ready for funding. So most businesses, when they start, they don't really have any money. They come up with an entrepreneur comes up with an idea and then effectively gets it to the point of trading and really sort of gets it there without really any finance at all, or any finance is money that they've put in themselves or so forth. So they've effectively dragged the business to the point of trading. But within every business, there gets to a point that if you want to make the next step to growth, the reality is that you're going to need to invest money in that. And it's not necessarily money that you've got. And so therefore, what you need to be thinking about doing is how you keep the business going without the funding. That's probably the first step. How you get the business ready for funding, how you structure yourself and all of the information that you've got so that you can put forward a really compelling argument for to a particular funder, what sort of funding options are out there, and then how you actually go about getting the funding, and then what the steps after that are. And I think that it's an area which most entrepreneurs would probably see as finding as an area either they haven't really had much experience in, or perhaps they're not confident in doing, and that's okay. I think that's probably the position for most entrepreneurs. So this is a really exciting opportunity to start finding out more about how you can get your business ready for funding and how you can get your business. And we are delighted to have Andrew Pledger here from the Barclays Eagle Labs. Andrew's really is going to talk through all of the steps, and give you some really pragmatic advice, and also some follow-on opportunities in terms of various sports to be able to do that. Just a few points before I hand over to Andrew. So if you have a question, press the Q&A button. You can pop the question in there, and we will respond to all questions at the end of the session. And we're going to have a session where I'm going to raise the questions with Andrew and effectively deal with stuff like that. Also to note is that we're going to be asking you a few questions through the webinar. So a couple of those will be about what sort of future requirements are. So we're going to be sending you a survey which will just ask you details about what it is that you're looking for going forward, whether you want extra support in terms of an introduction to the Growth Hub or an introduction to specific areas of funding within the Growth Hub. We can absolutely do that. And that's completely free, offered through the Growth Hub, and it's a service which is funded by the UK government. So anything that you get through the Growth Hub is completely free of charge. And then finally, so just to let you know that at the end of the session, what we also are offering is that we will also offer a one-to-many mentoring session, which is going to happen straight after this. It will be on or around 12 p.m. And that's an opportunity to move into a Zoom room so that it will be in a meeting. Andrew will be there, and you can basically grill him on maybe some of the more specifics about your business in terms of funding around that. So that's a really good opportunity to do that. It's a chance to question somebody that has a lot of experience in this space. And I think is really an opportunity not to be missed. So we will send the link out in the chat. Once this is finished, you can then click on that link and go straight into that Zoom room afterwards. So without further ado, I am now going to pass over to our speaker, Andrew, and hand the webinar over to Andrew. So welcoming Andrew Pledger.
Cool, thanks very much. Hi, so just double checking everyone can hear me and that everything is good on that front. You can see on my screen. Advanced apologies if I'm sort of doing this like a cat that's been trapped in an IMAX. It's because I have several screens in front of me and I lose track of where the actual camera is a lot of the time. So although it might look like I'm staring out the window while chatting, it's normally because I have a bunch of speaker notes that I'm trying to get myself through. So as mentioned, I'm Andrew Pledger from Barclays Eagle Labs. So I cover Kent, the ecosystem manager for Kent, but I'm based down in Discovery Park down in Sandwich, where we've got a science and technology sort of special sort of place essentially where people come and wet labs. We've got office facilities. It's absolutely vast, 200 something odd acres for the whole site. So if you're around, definitely do come down and visit. I've got a co-working space that I run alongside Discovery Park there, just through the door behind where my screen is there. I'm in the TARDIS, hence the slightly weirder mood lighting for me today. But we've got a great community down here. It's not just science and life science biotech businesses. We've got everything from sustainability, marketing, accountant, later life financial planning, and everything in between, if there is a between that exists somewhere there. So there we go. It's actually changing my slides now. So what is Eagle Labs and what do we do? Just to provide some rough context on all of that, just so that the following portions make a little bit more sense. So in a nutshell, we're here to identify and support the UK's high growth economic ecosystem. And that sounds very vague, but what that effectively means is companies who are looking to start up, scale and grow in an ambitious way and innovating within their sector, doing something new and exciting. We're here to support those businesses. I'll preface that with it's all free, apart from the co-working. If you do come move to Discovery Park, you do have to pay your rent, but everything that Barclays provides through Eagle Labs is free. We don't take equity or IP or any of the other weird and wonderful things that people have thought that we take over the years in exchange for our services. Don't have to bank with us at all. There's no prerequisite on that front. It really is sort of essentially no strings attached support to help that ecosystem grow. The first question people normally have at that point is, but why? basically the way we see it is that we're a large bank based in the UK, and if we're not helping the economic ecosystem to grow, then that's not a good thing. So we're here to help to support that across the board, essentially. So here's a couple of stats around what we do, essentially. So since 2015, when we started then, it was a very different shape. I think probably the vast majority of things I'm going to talk about probably didn't exist for at least a couple of years from 2015. We initially started, it was I think it was then COO Stephen Roberts basically just said, I want to do something else. And they gave him some branches and just said, you've got a year to figure out how to cover the costs of these sites. So I think it was Cambridge, Brighton, and Bournemouth. I think Bournemouth, maybe not so sure about. I think it was Bournemouth as the third one. And initially, we were just looking at just getting in footfall, understanding from that community exactly what they want, what their challenges are. That sort of morphed into a co-working network, and then over the years, that co-working network has expanded into a national proposition that's been largely led by the people within that network. So effectively, when people pestered us for something enough, we would then say, all right, okay, maybe this is actually something we should do in a much more formal way. And then that's kind of been another puzzle piece into the proposition. So currently we've got 42 lab locations all across the UK, all up in Aberdeen, Belfast, everything in between. I think we're in Sandwich, I think we're technically the most easterly of the labs. I can't remember if Norwich is ever so slightly more east. I forget how leaned over the UK is to the west on the actual map. Over 2024, we had 38,641 people attend our events, and businesses supported. That's over the lifetime of Eagle Labs, up to the end of last year. So a significant amount of businesses over the years, and we ran 22 growth programs that were open for applications in 2022. And then our lifetime of funding raised by members, program participants, and alumni is £4.81 billion in funding. So, a fair bit. We've certainly scaled up from our sort of fairly humble beginnings, I'd say, working out of old branches and things like that, trying to refurbish bank vaults to look like cool co-working spaces. We're now at a point where we cover the whole of the UK. So even if you don't have an Eagle Lab physically on your doorstep, you're able to engage with this proposition virtually, either via myself or from our national propositions team. So the slide I don't like, I would like the least in my presentation, is this very dense thing. But essentially, how do we support that ecosystem? It also makes me go all green as well when I have it up on the massive screen in front of me, which may be why I don't like it so much. But this is essentially how we support that ecosystem in a single slide. So growth programs, you've got industry specialist teams. We connect investors with startups in order to actually get funding, events and workshops like this. We have our corporate connections. We don't work just with small startups. We work right from that kind of, I've got an idea that I'd really like to go with, and I've got maybe a sort of half-baked pitch deck and still ideating and still trying to figure out what and if this thing even is, right up to scaling up to corporate M&A, all of that kind of stuff. But we like to try and make sure that there's a lot of cross-pollination between those sizes of companies. So we really like to help corporates to engage with startups to be able to kind of either think like or rekindle that kind of startup mentality. Likewise, a lot of startups find the kind of corporate knowledge base invaluable, especially if they're looking to do a kind of B2B within the corporate space. A lot of the time they won't know how to navigate that. So we try and sort of short circuit that a little bit and be like, right, talk to this person. They'll tell you, hey, if you're doing this, this is the kind of thing that would set you apart from other people tendering for this contract or whatever, and essentially kind of gives them a head start into what can be quite a sort of step up like that in the growth trajectory for a startup. So we also have, through our ecosystem expertise, we've got where there are 42 sites. There's an ecosystem manager those across the UK. We've got mentoring and our local actual co-working space. A lot of the collaboration in our network happens over coffee at the coffee machine while they're waiting, things like that. Just having a quick lunch, where playing table tennis down at Discovery Park. Everyone is very, very keen on table tennis, and probably as much networking happens over the tennis table than it does anywhere else. And then we've got a whole range of videos, reports, articles, all sorts of stuff on our Eagle Labs website and our deals and offers page. So we have various offers on things like free and discounted legal services, stuff into like Microsoft Azure programs. We've got it's a whole presentation on its own, the deals and offer things. But if you do want to kind of get stuck into that, then you can just sign up as a virtual member on our website and then have a full browse through that. So our growth programs, and this is a slightly convoluted looking slide, but the diagram on the right is probably the most relevant one. So as you can see, we work right from that ideation stage all the way through into sort of scaling up and kind of more in, not quite into full corporate in terms of the development that we help do, but certainly engaging with corporate entities. As you can see, there's an enormous amount of overlap in a lot of those programs. That's by design. There's often kind of big speed bumps in that growth trajectory. So if you can have a kind of overlapping thing, and also things like female founder accelerators versus funding readiness program, there's a big overlap in that general content. It's more about either demographic or an industry. Similar with like things like our industry supports, they'll have the same content but tailored very much to that industry. So for example, fundraising, like if you're a kind of app-based SaaS business, like your kind of route to market might be quicker and cheaper than say a R&D, drug discovery, life science, just giving everyone generic information the whole way through them. Of these, they kind of run various times throughout the year. I'll go into more detail on some of the later on in the editions in that yet. So the reason I'm here is essentially to talk about fundraising and essentially what that looks like and kind of what the basics of raising funds for your business are. There's going to be, I think, 4 or 5 kind of chapters, I suppose, overall. But I'm happy to, go into more in-depth Q&A as we go through as well. So initially, you're looking at how very early stages can be very. I think was there someone trying to ask a
Andrew,
question?
just to say that your audio keeps dropping in and out, so I'm not sure what that is. Maybe if you want to switch your mic on and off and just reset that.
Yeah, I'll do a quick offing and onning.
Yeah, that seems to be working. Yeah, so we'll carry on and I'll jump in if the audio is not working again.
Where was I? Cool. Yeah. So the amount that you're looking to raise is normally something that would be fairly early stage. It will determine. Lost my window now. Changing. So the steps for that will be identifying your primary startup costs. So without knowing how much money you'll need, you can't allocate your resources properly. So you need to list all of the stuff down, like sort of those sunk costs costs at the start that you needed to set up: registration, solicitors' fees, accounting, other pre-launch costs, like deposit on renting premises, websites, recruitment, and any sort of actual assets that you'll need, like laptops, phones, IT hardware, and all of that kind of stuff. Your camera's come on, so I'm guessing the audio is still.
Sorry to jump in. So I think we've still got the audio issue. So it's just cutting out and cutting back in again. So would you mind just restarting or just
restarting Zoom,
whether you're able to use a different mic or anything like that. So I think because we're just losing you kind of every sort of 20 seconds, and then there's a cut there.
And then I'll see if that helps. Because was it all right in the pre? It was fine before.
Yeah, when we were in, it was absolutely fine. Yeah, so it's
a classic, isn't it? As soon as
it's always the way. If you don't have some technical issues on a Zoom event, then it's not a good Zoom.
Yeah, it's part and parcel.
So just a good chance to remind everybody that the Q&A button is in there. Please pop your Q&As in there, and we will answer them at the end. We'll have a Q&A session. We will also have a one-to-many mentoring session as well. And then at the end, what we're going to do is I'll tell you a little bit about the kind of funding options that in terms of support that are available through the kind of Medway Growth Hub as well. So right, Andrew, you're on a different mic now. Let's see if that's working okay.
No worse, the same. Can you hear me all right?
Yeah, I can hear you now. That's fine. Yeah.
Cool. I always feel like an airline pilot or something wearing these headphones.
Good. Well, we will hopefully we will have a smooth flight from here on. So yeah, I'll hand back to you.
Identifying your startup costs. Hopefully that's relatively self-explanatory. So next up is your operating expenses. So a lot of people refer to this as things like burn rate, but essentially it's your monthly operating expenses, how they'll develop and change over time. So things like employment costs, software subscriptions, rent, utilities, and then as you're scaling, things like your marketing spend and the kind of recurring costs that might change. If you're developing a product, a lot of that will be down to your actual product development work. And if you're trying to get software MVP built, can be expensive. So getting a detailed estimate of what that will cost may require some in-depth calculations. But you can make sure you're going to like a wide range of agencies and things like that. Some can offer lower quotes in exchange for equity, which can make it a bit more sort of palatable for first-time founders if you don't have a huge amount of initial startup capital. So then moving on to calculating your runway. So looking at these costs, you will then be able to determine essentially how long your startup can operate without any additional funding, as it's known as runway. So total cash, monthly burn rate, that then tells you at our current sort of setup and how much money we've got, we're looking to get. This will buy us 12 months, 18 months, whatever it may be. But looking at things like kind of custom acquisition timelines, sales cycles, so there might be different milestones and timeframes that can adjust. So say you suddenly onboard twice as many customers, you then might have server costs going up, customer service stuff. You might have to hire people in to deal with those people. So knowing how that runway can change based on your growth trajectory changing is very, very useful. So always account for contingencies. So adding a buffer fund can be useful that you can sort of dip into. And founders often consider that to be about 10 to 20% of your overall raise as being like your kind of your pot to dip into if things are. Don't get too hung up on valuations, though. A lot of the time, people will say kind of, but how much should I raise? What's a company's worth? But at the early stage, it's not necessarily the sticking point that people think it is. But being wary of that valuation as well is important. So if you seek a high valuation at the beginning, you need to be mindful of those consequences. So taking a large sum up front, it increases your risk. Potentially diluting your equity. There's also to the north, away from major tech hubs. Those valuations can tend to be a bit lower, but if you're sort of in those kind of tech centers, things like that, that might sort of push that valuation higher. So things like salaries, rent, that kind of
Yeah.
those costs can factor into that. People that do know what they're talking about when it comes to the finance and accounting stuff, building contingencies, have a look at your local startup and how that's reflected across the UK.
So Andrew, sorry to interrupt again. So you're just dropping out again with regards to the audio. So I think what it might be worth doing is if we just take a quick 5-minute pause, and if you're able to just go back out of the meeting and restart, and then just so that because I think it's probably easier if we just kind of get on and restart that now. I'll talk a little bit over that. So thanks, Andrew. Sorry to interrupt.
No worries. I'll reset my VPN just in case it's that's causing the problem.
Okay.
It was
yeah, no problem at all. Okay, so I think and so just
fine for the 15 minutes before everyone came in, and then
yeah, always the way. So don't worry about that. So so I think for anyone that's on, we'll just take a 5-minute break. So yes, thank you, Andrew. So opportunity for you to recaffeinate and get a coffee whilst Andrew just restarts everything. So also just an opportunity to just tell you a little bit about how you can engage with the Kent and Medway Growth Hub and the sorts of opportunities around that. So I think the first thing, and probably the best thing, is like how you access all services now, or how you find out about is through the socials, and so Kent and Medway Growth Hub is available through LinkedIn and probably LinkedIn and Facebook. Facebook and Instagram are the three channels that I think are the best in terms of finding out about all of the great events and opportunities out there. So get yourself following those, and that's the opportunity to start to see what sort of offers are out there. I think that the one good thing to be able to do, which if you notify us through the survey, will be an opportunity to get a session just talking through with one of the navigators at the Growth Hub, just what sort of support can be offered in terms of identifying options in terms of local business support, in terms of local programs that are happening, in terms of access to local events, and then also what's happening more broadly. And so you've heard from Andrew about the Eagle Barclay Labs, the Barclays Eagle Labs. That is a program that is a national program with all sorts of support, and there are other areas, whether it's focused around digital marketing, whether it's focused around finance, whether it's focused around specifically funding, which is what Andrew is talking about, through into other areas, and any particular area of business. There are some really good resources out there, and the navigators in the Growth Hub will just help you to identify that. There's also an opportunity to get involved and to be considered particularly for some of the different funding options. And there's a couple of areas. So it might be around particularly around business grants. and the Kent and Medway Business Fund as well, I think is another area which you can consider, which is a low-cost financial option. And there's an opportunity to be able to have a specific introduction to what that particular fund is offering, what the eligibility criteria are around that, and whether that's something that may be of support to your business. So that's a really good opportunity to do that. And I think the Growth Hub will also look to try and help you to potentially identify particular areas of your business that may require support, or it will certainly look to interact with other areas and other potential localities. Also, we'll tell you about particular events that are coming up. So one event that I think is of real note to anyone in the Kent area is coming up is the West Kent Expo. So that's hosted by Invest West Kent and West Kent Business. Tickets are free. There are still a few tickets available for that. That's a really exciting expo that's happening in Tunbridge next Wednesday. It's running from 10 until 3. So there's going to be there's around 60 exhibitors, which I think is exciting, ranging from micro businesses right up to some of the largest businesses in West Kent. There is going to be around 500 visitors, so it's going to be a really busy event. There is a whole series of workshops. So we've got workshops from Google. We've got workshops around digital marketing from Yo-Yo. We've got a finance specific session, and we've also got a really exciting panel event, which is going to feature some of our sponsors, some of the people from across the West Kent business community. So it's a really exciting event. So people are asking for how you get tickets. So I think what we will probably do is stick a link into the chat for that, and I will magically ask one of my team to see if they can grab the link and stick that in there. Alternatively, you can do the usual best support approach, which is to just stick West Kent Expo 2025 into Google or whatever preferred search engine you have, and it will come up. So I can see that we've popped that in. We've popped the Eventbrite link in there. That's a really good. It's a really good expo. It's a really good opportunity to see what different businesses are doing out in West Kent, and so I would really encourage you to go along to that. So going to an expo, it takes time out of your calendar, and and that's it. But it's a great way to just network with other business owners, other potential entrepreneurs, to just be thinking about what you can do with regards to that, and what you can do with regards to your business. There'll be some really exciting businesses in there. We've got a micro business area that's being sponsored by the TN card. So the TN card is a really exciting scheme that operates across West Kent and acts as a hub of businesses. So it has offers and deals from around 1,000 West Kent based businesses. So it's a really good opportunity to do that. So well worth taking a look at the TN card. You'll be able to see that they've got a stand in there, so you can go and visit the TN card. You can find out about how you can become a member business. You can find out about how you can offer that service to your employees as well. So it's a really great local scheme, that the TN card. So they've got a stand up in the exhibition hall, and then also there's a micro business area which they're running, which is displaying some of the Kent micro businesses out there. So we are just waiting for Andrew to join us, and perfect timing. Andrew is back in. I've been able to give you a little summary about the Kent and Medway Growth Hub. So Andrew, thank you very much indeed for resetting. Sorry to have interrupted you.
That's all right. Hopefully you can hear me now. If we do have any cutting out, what I'll do is I will dial in with my phone and then send the audio just over phone.
Fine. Okay. Yeah, I think that should work fine. So if you want to share the presentation, and then we will I will hand back to you. I've just been talking about the West Kent Expo, and which so you will be able to see Andrew there as well. So Andrew's going to be at the West Kent Expo, so you'll be able to see him in 3D as well. Which we at that point we guarantee no sound issues from Andrew unless of course unless of
Well, I
course
don't know.
some sort of disease prevents him. So disease aside, Andrew will have no audio issues when he's at the expo next week. So that's great. Thank you, Andrew. We've got the slide up, so I will leave you to it and hand back to you.
Excellent. Great practical joke potential there, just sort of manually cutting out and mouthing the words for like 10 seconds. Alrighty, so I think I was just looking at key takeaways. Yeah, so that's what they are. So on to the next portion. So a lot of the time, people will kind of go down this path of like a startup has to raise like investment and things like that, and that's the default setting to them. But a lot of the time, determining whether that is actually something that you should be doing with the structure of your business is something that you should really carefully consider. It does help with things like you keep full control, independence, doesn't dilute equity. What is challenging, certainly possible depending on the actual nature of that startup, your skills, knowledge, and experience, as well as having the right strategy and resources at hand. There is a considerable amount of thinking and self-reflection on your idea and situation that you need to do in order to kind of help navigate this particular approach, if that's something that you do choose. I don't know why the last one has now appeared as the first one, but we'll go from the top and everyone just pretend it doesn't say work with an accountant at the bottom there. That's a spoiler for the last one. So examine the essential skills within your founding team. So having that key skills set across your team that's essential. So things like software developers, sales. If you've got that skill set and resource, that means that you're able to bootstrap a little bit more easily. And it's because you're not having to kind of buy in those skills. Essentially, you're able to do them at the start. So assessing, whether your startup idea can be developed within that current skill set of the founding team. So can you actually build an MVP without having to hire expensive developers? But also being very clear on what the cost could be to those. Like if you hit a stumbling block, for example, where you suddenly realize you're out of your depth in coding, something like that, knowing what the cost could be if you're bootstrapping is very important for informing your financial strategy. So working through that strategy is the next thing you need to consider. So roadmaps, Gantt charts, not just for things like actual cash flow, but things like personnel that you might need to get in, what those might sort of bracket of what those might cost, and what the actual product might end up costing you. Again, going back to that example, if you suddenly kind of hugely scale and there's actually a massive appetite for your particular digital product, then suddenly realizing that your server bill is going to be 10 times what it is, and although you're scaling absolutely amazingly, all of those free trials that your hand were bitten off for is actually costing you a lot of money, and it might bring that runway short. So knowing kind of what, not just the kind of actual cash flow, but the potential product growth strategy is important as well. So doing a full audit of all of those resources available. So not just internally, so things like what local programs, facilities you can make use of. Are there public sector funding grants and programs through organizations like Chambers of Commerce, organizations like Capital Enterprise that can kind of move you forward without having to take that financial risk in the early stage. So a lot of people tend to sort of assume that they're going to be building something big and venture scale, but often half the businesses that come in aren't going to be actually at that venture scale. So knowing what those sort of metrics and early signs are to sort of know what that scale versus your resources is can be useful to making that decision. So making use of free tools and resources. So tech businesses particularly no shortage of free tools that they can make use of in their early stages. So as a founder, you can use some very specific digital tools that cost nothing, can help you with things like programming, productivity, communication, cloud services, analytics, all of that kind of stuff, design as well. It's definitely a good time to have access to those kinds of free resources, as well as the actual resource to you internally. Again, there are outside resources as well. Can be overwhelming sometimes, but there's no shortage of good resources that are supported by experienced professionals. So growth hubs, chambers of commerce, sector specialist organizations, trade associations, and in general, the baseline quality of those is good. And now the long awaited work with an accountant. So if you're not a numbers person, definitely having an accountant in to help you actually go through and quantify what your strategy is can be very helpful for that bootstrapping approach. You don't want to go in not as a numbers person, do some back of the napkin stuff and think, cool, I can pour my life savings into that. I got plenty. If you're not a numbers person, then definitely try and get someone in who can kind of look up all of your stuff and kind of help rule in or rule out that bootstrapping approach. So again, key takeaways: identifying those resources that you need and what of those resources are free. The beginning of this key takeaway, the bootstrapping doesn't mean you're going it alone, is something that a lot of people forget. You get people going into that sort of startup mode where they sequester themselves away and just have at it. But there are plenty of opportunities for mentors, entrepreneurs, experienced professionals. Talk to those people, see how they can help you, especially our mentoring service as well, because it's free. So you're not, if you're bootstrapping, that's one less thing that you have to pay for as well. And sure, all aspects of your businesses. So make sure that you're looking at that holistic approach, not just internally, externally as well, but also where that kind of, what do they call it? That sort of cone of uncertainty can go. Like, do we, if this succeeds beyond our wildest dreams, do we still have the money to kind of back that essentially? So different kinds of funding. So as mentioned, there's all sorts of different options that can be available to you to kind of get that actual funding in the early stages. This bit is a video. I'm going to absolutely pray that this thing works. If my mic audio is not going through very well, then this video might be an exciting one. It is all completely subtitled though, so if it does go horribly wrong for the audio for this video, we can just read the subtitles along as we go. I can just see a comment saying sound and video not working, so you might just have to read along. Oh.
Hey Andrew, just if you want to share that with the sound, what all you need to do is the share button there. When you click on that, there is a there's an you can take it down and then there's an option to click to say share sound, and when you put it back up, then it will share the sound for you. So if you want to use that.
Nice. What I'll do is I'll quickly style your screen sharing. I'm just going to stop and then restart with that. So share screen. Also share system audio. Guessing that's what I want. We hear you. There you go. I had the window off the edge of my screen, so I didn't see the option to tick also share system audio.
And it is UK access to Horizon 2020. That would probably be a really good first quarter call for most founders if you're doing something that is genuinely novel in the technology space. Not every entrepreneur is doing something novel with technology, and not always will grant funding be sufficient or desirable based on its requirements and timescales for every entrepreneur to participate in. Therefore, for most people, they will go to what is colloquially, perhaps a little bit alarmingly, to new founders called friends, family, and fools, or triple F. Maybe you've got a rich auntie or an uncle that lives abroad and is retired and is willing to put of his pension money into your business. The reality is that is not an option for many people. A lot of people in our society don't have access to those networks. They don't have access to such wealth. For a lot of people, the first protocol will be an angel investor. Angel investors are just people with money who are willing to come in at the earliest stage and where your business is most risky and put a little bit of money in exchange for some equity. And probably they'll be quite hands-on and help you. Sometimes that's what we'd call dumb money, quiet money. They'll just put the money in and let you get on with it. But what's usually preferable is if that is someone who's got experience of your industry. So say I was trying to build some payroll software. It'd be really good if one of my early angel investors could be someone who's already built payroll software or has worked in a finance director role and is familiar with the pains in that industry. You can access angels usually through regional and local angel networks. Most places around the UK have got them. There are some nationally kind of operating bodies that aren't geographically constrained. And there's also some themed ones as well around. So again, deep tech, science type things.
If I pause sharing, it then unmutes me. I'm just going to reset it again then. There we go. Strange that it does that when you try and share audio, it then mutes you and you can't unmute afterwards when you're playing a video. So yeah, key takeaways of that: have a look at grants, what those eligibility requirements are, profile a potential list of investors within your network, and how you can kind of get what you're doing across to them. If you're looking for angel investors, yeah, helps to find someone with experience in that product area that you're developing. Can be a double-edged sword, that one, but yeah. So next portion, is what can angel investors offer? So according to research from Bowhurst, first quarter of 2023 saw 2.3 billion invested in UK startups. And angel investment was the third biggest contributor to this pool of investment. So overall investment activity in Q1 of 2023 dropped when compared to the same period in 2022. But despite that decline in the number of angel network funded deals to 41, down from 95, the UK is still by far the biggest market for angel investor deals in Europe. Well, the last one just keeps coming up when I'm sharing my screen like that, but there's a tantalizing teaser into what the last thing I'll be talking about is. But the first one is private funds, personal involvement. So it's important to remember that angel investors are individual. The money that they invest for equity tends to be their own personal wealth, so your success and growth directly matters to them. As a result of that, you'll likely get more one-to-one time with them than you would with other finance sources, as they're kind of looking to support as well as secure the growth of the investment, which can be a very attractive package. So as mentioned, the investment they provide isn't not just necessarily financial. It's also likely to be a personal investment of time, knowledge, experience, contact. So UK BAA research found that 29% of angels offered hands-on support to founders, while 51% offered support with future funding rounds and 59% offered introductions and connections. Which takes you on to the next point about angels. So provision of experience and expertise. So angels often have extensive experience and can offer valuable insights and guidance, as well as mentorship based on their own entrepreneurial journeys they've gone through. They can share their knowledge, help you as a founder to navigate those challenges, help make strategic decisions, avoid common pitfalls and things like that. They can also be very useful for helping you to expand and grow your networks. So angel investors typically have quite a broad network of contacts within the industry, including fellow investors, entrepreneurs, potential customers, key industry players that can greatly enhance your connections over the long term. The other thing that they're very good for is kind of getting that approval and validation. So by having an angel investor on board, founders and their businesses also gain a kind of stamp of credibility and validation. If you've got the involvement of a reputable angel investor, it can be a good signal to other investors, potential partners, and stakeholders that your startup has merit potential for success. While it can be often feel sort of isolating having that investment in your startup, can show a good sort of sign of belief and commitment, and it can also just be a reassuring thing to yourself as well as potential investments. So then support and future investment, finally got to that one. So they're also able to connect you with other sources of funding, such as VCs or other angel investors. And they can really sort of help with future financing rounds through introductions, as well as knowing when the right time for those particular introductions is based on previous experience working with those. I'm going to do a very quick stop share shuffle for the video. I'll be really fast at this by the end.
My name is Mark Dowds. I've been an entrepreneur and investor over the last 20 years of my life. I'm the managing director of Anthemis Group. In a pitch specifically, they want clarity. They want it short, precise, and clear. So if you end up having a 30-minute meeting and that you talk for 30 minutes, that's a problem. You want to have something that's punchy, something that's clear, something that can be communicated in 5 minutes, that really can give the potential angel the ability to get curious and ask the questions about the company. There is definitely a personality profile to go for with angel investment. If you can find someone who has built a company, operated, grown tech, knows tech, and has made some money, so basically hasn't either been a active angel investor in that space or has operated and succeeded and made some money, they are gold, because you're going to get advice, you're going to get support, and you're going to get a risk appetite. The worst money to take is from lawyers, doctors, people who know what bill by the hour, and there's that type of model just doesn't compute for them. And actually having a good angel investor, that basically be involved in the company, it's good if they actually know something about your business and can read tech. One of the bigger mistakes is folks go out for investment and try to think, well, okay, I want to go raise 5 million, out of the gates, when they're not really understanding how the business works. Most folks won't write a big check in the very fledgling company. They want to grow or grow with you or walk with you over time. So it's best to sort of think it through like a longer term budget, and it's an ongoing process. It'd be a wonderful world if you could just get all the money that you need and then go build the business and focus. That's, but unfortunately what it ends up being is that you've got a whole series of investments, and you need to just recognize that as soon as you take one investment, you're likely going to be on the road raising money as part of your job for the rest of your life, or certainly the rest of the startup. That sort of comes with the territory. Once you receive angel investment, you've got another boss. You've got somebody else to report to. So there's risk of losing their money. There's a risk of bringing in on the wrong terms an angel investment, because then you'll have folks that are meddling with your business to, proactively, rather than actually entrusting you to basically build it out. I would advise folks to at least have, build an advisory board or bring some folks in that can help you, that have been there and done that before. Building a network is vital, actually. Over the years, I've been building companies for over 20 years. And so as a result of that, I've got a large Rolodex. So I've got a lot more people to go to today than I did, when I first began. So taking your time to nurture and build those folks, and then those that invest with you today, is maintaining that relationship for years to come. It's just, it's crucial. So this is a relational business. It is, the bigger the network you have, and as long as you've been well behaved and cared for those folks over time, it'll go to your favor.
All right, and do the shuffle. Fantastic. So hopefully you can hear me now, and it's unmuted me. So yeah, key takeaways: clarifying those benefits and whether they're right for you, exploring angel networks, and ensuring that everything is very well prepared. They want to see that you know what you're doing, and at least the bits that you don't know, that you don't know them, because you can't know them yet. So this is just going to be a really quick portion on, we've spoken a lot about sort of angel equity side of things. Something that is a alternative to that is to go down the crowdfunding route, whether that's either a sort of rewards-based crowdfunding, like the kind of classic Kickstarter model where you basically pre-order a product, but also there's things like Crowdcube, other sort of platforms that essentially allow you to have equity investment, but from a crowdsourced thing rather than sort of more monolithic investments. This one is the last video. I'm going to get very good at doing this in Zoom webinar by the end of it. So I'm going to do the classic shuffle now and bring back the video.
Crowdfunding is fundamentally a community building activity. You're bringing your newsletter subscribers, your social media followers, the people that you're fans, into your business as shareholders or as early product users. So if you already have a thriving community, then I recommend 6 weeks just to prepare the content. However, if you don't have a community, you don't have social media followers or a newsletter list, which is totally normal, I normally recommend about 3 months to do a lot of that activity, get people interested, and then convert them into investors or early product users. Your day-to-day life will be drastically impacted by a crowdfunding campaign. Most founders that I work with spend probably in total 2 weeks full-time over a couple of months. You first have to choose the model of crowdfunding that is right for you. And so that will be the equity crowdfunding, rewards-based crowdfunding, or another model. Those two are the most popular. Equity crowdfunding is really for B2C businesses that have maybe raised a small funding round, an angel funding round, and have a bit of a community ready to go, because the sums that you're raising with equity crowdfunding are a lot larger. Rewards-based crowdfunding is also for B2C businesses, but it's about selling early products, so you can be slightly earlier. Between those two models, you've got a couple of options. And the main ways that I would recommend differentiating between them is by looking at other businesses that have raised on those platforms. So for rewards-based crowdfunding, you have Kickstarter and Indiegogo. If you see as a electric skateboard company that tons of electric skateboards have raised really well on Indiegogo, you should go to Indiegogo. The reason for that is because it represents the kind of people that are on the platform and what they're interested in. So look at your competitors, what platforms they've raised on, and use that as your decision making. The main thing to think about when you post your idea on a crowdfunding site is that you know infinitely more than anyone will ever know about your business. And so you really need to simplify as much as you can, to the point where it feels like you're describing it to a 5-year-old and it feels a bit uncomfortable. It feels like you're not able to give everything about your business that you want to share. Often founders make the mistake of trying to put too much in there, say that, and this is great, and this is great, and this is great. But the reality is it just dilutes the core message. So you really have to simplify, think about the most important things about your product or about your business that people need to know, but then in the simplest form possible. Making an impact in crowdfunding really comes down to building hype, and that's really about the timing of your marketing. The first question regarding timing, I talked about community building. And if you don't have a community, then you've got to dedicate time to building a community. And what that looks like really depends on your business, but it's likely maybe building a Facebook group, building a mailing list, building a LinkedIn group, running offline events. Those are the kind of things you're doing at the beginning. Then when it comes to really making a splash, on its most basic form, it's just about increasing the frequency of communication. So you start with maybe, if you're using a mailing list, an email once every 2 weeks, then once every week, and you increasingly introduce more exciting information. So you can say you'll be getting a 20% discount if you invest in us, you'll be getting a 20% discount if you buy the product early. And by the way, we've got this celebrity on board, or by the way, we've got 300,000 people that love our product. And you increasingly introduce more exciting information. So the point that when you launch, people are super excited and really ready to invest. To summarize, the major pitfalls to avoid in crowdfunding is not preparing. That sounds vague, but that's the reality. The money really comes from your community and your hard work, and you want to do that before you launch. Second thing is overcomplicating your idea. When it comes to the storytelling, really try and simplify. Finally, be prepared to put in the hard work. If you have product launch or other major significant milestones in your business, try not to run a crowdfunding campaign at the same time because it will be very, very busy.
There you go, like an F1 pit crew that time. So lots of good insights there from Hannah. That is a whole other thing on its own almost. So I just thought it'd be useful to just hear like a very quick summary on it. There's a lot more considerations with that. But we've got modules on specifically on crowdfunding on the Eagle Labs Academy. And Hannah's actually also one of our mentors. So if you do go through that and you think I really just need to chat to an actual expert, someone with a doctorate in it, then you can book in a session with Hannah, and I'm sure she'll be able to help you out with any specific questions on crowdfunding. So yeah, key takeaways: simplifying how you talk, the way you talk to a potential, even if it's an equity or rewards based thing, will be different to how you speak to other investors or other people backing. Do your research on competitors, and community is always key with crowdfunding. So funding wrap up. So that effectively covers our kind of foundation module on funding rate and sort of what to think about, how to think about it, what considerations to take in when going kind of down that journey of fundraising. There are other modules also available through our academy that go into much more in-depth looks at various aspects of those things. But essentially, it's all these blue slides. I love how it just makes me look like I've got some kind of horrible disease, but they're always the ones that are a bit dense. But this will always send out as well, so you can have a look through. But essentially, identifying resources and what of those resources are free, build in your contingency. What are your overall options and how are others doing it, both nationally and locally? Grants always good to take into account. Have a decent database profile list of your investors potentially. Again, crowdfunding pretty similar. Do your research, have a look into best practices and how people have succeeded on it or failed. It's always useful to be able to learn from someone else's mistake rather than having to make the mistake yourself and then learn from it. There's often a lot less collateral damage going down that route. And for angel investors, individuals with some relevant experience in that product area, there can be some interesting things to navigate within that. So, say for example, this is one that I personally have seen come up a lot in education technology. Is you get someone on board who's got a huge experience of building like SaaS platforms, for example, but they've all been like sort of business focused stuff or kind of not targeting educational environments, and what works within that particular SaaS thing might not work at all within the SaaS environment within education. So not just the product area, but that sector area is just as important as the actual relevance to how you're going to deliver to that sector. And then there's a little cheeky plug there to the funding readiness program, which I will go into much more detail on in a bit. So as I mentioned, the Eagle Labs Academy is something we run, again, completely free. This is something where we have an enormous amount of resource that's available. It's a lot of the stuff that we've found people have requested from us frequently. So just a couple of examples of some of the modules that have been added recently. They cover very generic things within the business as well as without the business. Outside of the business. So there are actually modules on how to like manage your personal circumstances as well as your business circumstances, making sure that you don't have to fold it all up and get a full-time job just because you've run out of runway or whatever. It's like how to because you can't sort of take a salary that quickly or whatever, and you've got a mortgage to pay, but how to manage that, as well as things like working with your co-founders, growing your teams. It's absolutely huge now, and there's new modules being added all the time. It's quite good at recommending relevant stuff to you as well. So I think it does like a little quiz at the start. It's a bit weird for me because I've logged into it several times before it was even released and things like that. So what I see ends up being very different from a new user. But I'm fairly sure that there's a quiz at the start that goes through and works out what your current knowledge base is on certain topics, and where you should start effectively, rather than just being like, I'm going to sit down and grind out the entire Eagle Labs Academy and then start work. It's also designed to kind of fill in smaller knowledge gaps and kind of help you as you go and how you develop through. So where it covers stuff like the intro to funding, there's also kind of more advanced, in-depth modules on specific types of fundraising, and things like fundraising for growth rather than starting up. All sorts of interesting stuff on there. Again, all free to engage with, and they are adding stuff a lot. There's been quite a few new modules that have been on there. So that continuous product development one, I didn't even know it was there until I went to go get the screenshot a couple of days ago on the platform. So it's new even to us who do view it quite regularly. So as promised, I'm going to talk a little bit about the Eagle Labs funding readiness program. So that's essentially something that when you go from if you've kind of got a rough knowledge base and you're kind of ready, you know kind of what funding you're going to go for. You've either ruled out crowdfunding or bootstrapping, for example. You're like, we're going to target a few angels. We've got maybe half a pitch deck that we're looking to sort of polish up into something that we can actually be investor ready and go and stand in front of a team Dragon's Den style, and you can answer all of the awkward questions and jargon, things like that, like term sheets and convertible loan notes and all of that jazz. You should be able to sort of stand confidently and answer those questions. got slightly ahead of myself and basically already explained this slide in classic form, but essentially it's those early stage businesses or scale ups who are considering investment. And it's delivered all virtually. So there's stuff that's done kind of both synchronous and asynchronous. There's mentoring sessions. There's a lot of networking with other businesses who might be in a completely different sector to you, but are at the same growth journey. So often it can be interesting to hear about how other people are kind of navigating a similar road, but in a completely different industry. That's one of the consistent bits of feedback we always get from them, is that a lot of people actually just find that the most valuable thing, is just kind of not knowing that you're alone out there and there are other companies who are also treading that same path, albeit in a different industry or perhaps a very similar industry. Might be able to scope out a competitor or two, or find someone to team up with. It's always good. There's several hundred people per cohort, so there's a wealth of sort of experience and inexperience to engage with on there. Again, all completely free. And the way it works is you just fill out our application form. I can sort of circulate that afterwards, or if you just type in Eagle Labs funding readiness, it probably come up as the first result. Our kind of current timeline, there's one currently open for applications until the 28th of March, and then that's launching in the beginning of April. But as you can see, future seasons, we've got one opening up again in August. We try and run these pretty much as often as we can. We ran 4 last year, or sort of 4.5. We had one that sort of straddled over the year divide, but we generally aim to run these fairly often. So we're normally either running one or opening applications for one at any given time. And it's not just us that run it, so we run it in partnership with Capital Enterprise. They have a wealth of knowledge on this kind of stuff, and they do various workshops. If you go onto it, you're not sort of committed. It's not about school where they're going to sort of be annoyed if you miss the crowdfunding seminar, because you're just like, I literally don't care about crowdfunding and it's irrelevant to my particular business. It's fine, just don't go to the crowdfunding one. That's all right. At the end of these programs, not all of them, but some of them, and some of them we sort of do industry specific ones, and it's all a bit kind of ad hoc, I suppose. We do run demo days where we select some of the best businesses from cohorts, and then they're able to go and showcase their innovation ideas to actual investors who are looking to invest. And it's a kind of a bit of a celebration really as well, just to kind of, you did the funding readiness program, and you'll get to do things like meet alumni from other programs and things like that. But so it's not just you get to learn and then go off and do it on your own. Effectively, we try and keep that momentum going right the way through that journey. The next thing that I want to talk about that we help with the kind of funding journey is our mentoring and coaching program. So essentially, companies that are using this is digital or technology to operate or deliver their value proposition. That sounds really vague and broad. Essentially, think more on the innovation rather than like generally most innovative companies looking to scale with investment are probably using technology in some way, shape, or form. Doesn't mean it has to be an app or something like that, or a digital platform. And yeah, essentially we run it in partnership with quite a few people. So we have Codebase, who do the kind of tech and tech adjacent mentoring, Cambridge Judge Business School, who do our kind of entrepreneurial mentorship. So something that we see often is people with either bucket loads of passion or a huge amount of industry knowledge, but they say they've just worked for a large corporate for 25 years and they've never set foot in the business world themselves. Cambridge Judge Business School are really good at sort of filling in that side of it. It's like so I've got the knowledge and passion to change the world, but like they're still unsure about, like, when do I go on Companies House to register my business? When do I need an accountant? How do I do a business plan? That side of stuff. Cambridge Judge can deal with all of that, as well as into much more advanced kind of business mentoring, but it's generally on that sort of raw entrepreneurship side of things. We have Accelerate Her, which do female founder businesses. I mentioned Codebase tonight, but yeah, tech adjacent. They're probably the most varied one. There's people there who've had a lifetime of scaling consultancy businesses or life sciences, as well as things like running robotics toy companies for kids and stuff. And a huge amount of different stuff. It's worth a read through all of their bios, because some of the people sounds like they've had a very exciting business journey over the years. And then we have Panache Ventures, which specialize in global VC connectivity. Capital Enterprise, which I will do a little bit more detail on. They do all of our funding related stuff. And Carbon 13, who do the sustainability mentoring. So Capital Enterprise, as I mentioned, they leading authority in the sort of tech startup growth, and we've got I appreciate these are all really small bits of text to read on here, but this is just an overview of specifically the Capital Enterprise mentors that we have available to us. There are actually a few more, and some of them do. People do stuff for multiple mentorship. It's basically, they're all there if you do want to read through their bios and find out exactly what kind of specific things they're able to help with. I always find it entertaining that the guy called Grant is the one that doesn't go to Fabricio if you want Grant stuff. So the next thing I'm going to kind of go over is, so you've got this far, you know what you're doing, you're investor ready, you've got your pitch deck, you can talk confidently on your idea in a way that will get people who are ready to invest in you excited, interested. How do you actually go about finding those people and getting the money? So this is the kind of last, both I say just towards the end of the presentation, but also the kind of our handing over to the kind of corporate support side of things. We do plenty of scaling up stuff, but this is kind of towards the end of our sort of startup continuum. So Demo Directory, it's a platform for connecting founders to potential investments, in a word. So live platforms, you're able to have an elevator pitch, and registered active investors are able to see those profiles. So everyone gets asked 7 key questions, short demo video, and then various kind of key metrics. Also things like sort of LinkedIn links to your team and things like that, just to kind of help them put a bit more context to what it is that you guys do. The video doesn't have to be a sort of high-end, super polished Kickstarter-esque video, unless you really want to. Don't go out and sort of hire a big production team to get jazzy B-roll and things like that. The example video, I think it's just a guy in a Teams room on his own, just pitching to himself while recording his screen, and I think they haven't even cropped out the start bar on his pitch video. So effectively, it's just a way of really to get the investors more engaged with the platform. We found that they're more, it's just a better way of, you can actually see the people rather than just being like, here are several hundred PDFs of pitch decks, find some that you like. You can actually sort of see the humans behind it. So they're able to search and filter through those. There's I think 30 odd metrics that they can filter through. So a potential investor can say, I'd like to see every female-led business that's in digital health that's under 2 years old looking to raise over £1 million, and it will be like, here they all are. They can then view that information, and then they're able to just contact that founder directly. If they're keen to invest, you'll get sent stats on how many investors have been viewing your profile, because a lot of the time it can be a bit sort of not daunting, but like not demoralizing, but where you've uploaded your thing and you just sit there and you're like, okay, well, what happens now? But actually, like 50 investors have looked at your profile, and some of them might be getting ready to contact you. So aimed at early stage founders, but as you can see, it's the average. This is just the last data that I grabbed from it, so it might have changed now. But the average is 1.47. It sort of varies around that just over 1 million mark, and then the range is from 20k to 56 million. So a huge variation of amounts looking to be raised. But yeah, the average is just over 1 million. Likewise, there's a big variety of amounts being raised. There's also a big variety of investors on the platform as well. So we have angels, VCs, high net worth individuals. It's quite a diverse, quick changing landscape, because as said at the top there, it's active investors who are signed in. If you're not actively investing, then you can't be on the platform effectively. Likewise with the startups. If you aren't currently raising, then your profile will just go into dormancy. You can sort of reactivate it for your sort of Series A, Bs, and all of that stuff. But what that means is that the platform at any given time is as current and happening as possible. We don't want sort of founders kind of just hanging around, just being curious about what cool new startups are coming up through the woodwork. And likewise, we don't want a situation where an investor, they watch video, they kind of go through the vital stats and think, yes, this is great. Like, I've been waiting to find a business like this. This is perfect. They contact them only to then find out that the company actually just went under 6 months ago because they didn't raise investment. And it's like, we want to make sure that the interactions that are happening are as current as possible. So we utilize a 90-day timer for that. So once your pitch is alive, that then starts a 90-day timer. At the end of that 90 days, our funding solutions team will just get in touch and say, hey, are you still raising? Have you closed some of your round? Have you fully closed it? And then they'll update that information. And then if the round is closed, or if the person just doesn't respond for whatever reason, then that profile goes back into dormancy. And again, sort of take any commission or anything like that. It's essentially just a sort of investor discovery platform where effectively it just makes life easier to do this at scale. If you're just shoveling, anyone who's looking for money or looking to invest their money just goes onto the demo directory and they sort it out amongst themselves. It makes it easier to kind of operate at that scale. So yeah, as mentioned, as you can see there, 301 listings, 855 founder applications, and 211 investors on the network. Again, this is just a snapshot from when I last received some data around it, because the platform is closed off. Startups can't see each other. It's only investors who can see, well, investors and our team that kind of curate the platform can actually see those pitches. And likewise, investors can't see each other and things like that. So it's very regulated and closed off. But we do sort of publish data as we go. This is just some data around our pilot program that we ran a few years ago. So we ran sort of short pilots, just sort of work out how well it works, essentially. So we had 642 founder applications and 385 investors on that pilot. And then over the course of the pilot, there was 45.2 million raised, and very annoyingly, just under half of the founders raised within 6 months. I think that's the sore spot of Benjamin and his team. If we'd got that extra 0.7%, then we could say over half raised, but it's just annoying that it's just a tiny bit below half. But still, I think at least an impressive figure considering the 6-month time span. And then the other thing that we're really proud of is the kind of diversity of those applications. So over half have ethnically diverse founder, under half female founder, and then just under half based outside of that golden triangle of Oxford, London, and Cambridge. As you can see on the map, like it's a pretty wide range, all the way up from Aberdeen. We've even got, I think, the Isle of Man over there, even in the sort of Welsh borders and down to the West Country. So we really wanted to make sure that this is something that can really push that funding across the whole UK in a very sort of equitable way, rather than like you have to be sort of hobnobbing it in the city in order to stand a chance. This is something that really opens it out, and kind of, yeah, wherever you are, you're able to access this platform. Definitely have good read through if that's something that's interested in you and you're looking to raise soon. One thing we do is we're quite involved in the sort of curation from a startup perspective. So we'll get a lot of startups who'll say, yeah, brilliant, put me on there, I'm ready for some money, but they might not actually be ready for the demo directory. You won't just get kicked to the curb. What might happen is they might say, hey, maybe have a chat with this particular mentor just to iron out these few question marks that we have. Or if it's much more early stage, then going back to something like a funding readiness program, just to kind of get everything raised up to that minimum standard, because we do want to make sure that the investors are looking at businesses who kind of meet that kind of criteria for investment, essentially. The application itself is a 2-stage application. So initially, it's just looking at like, who are you, essentially. Once that's been processed by our funding solutions team, so looking at things like where your business is based in the world, if you're half around the world with no UK presence, or operating in an industry where you're sort of developing like battlefield weaponry or something like that, or other high risk things, it might be tricky for the demo directory. Once we've kind of looked at it and we're like, yeah, that's fine, you're the kind of business that I think would benefit from this, then you're then invited to do your application. So we want to avoid, again, that situation of somebody spending all this effort only to be told, hey, sorry, you're not eligible for the demo directory. It's only once you've got that kind of sign off and thumbs up point where you're then invited to come back and complete your profile. So that pretty much takes me to the end of my one. I'm slightly ahead of schedule, but it means we can jump over straight into the Q&A. I feel like it's been a slightly lonely end here, so I'm really keen to actually see the names and faces of everyone who's been sitting down on the participants bit. So I think we are going to go over to the Q&A session. There's just some generic contact details that can all be circulated, and then I've got the closing slide with the details for coming over to the Q&A and mentoring session.
Thank you so much, Andrew. Really, really appreciate it.